Hello, hello, hello. Get in the room. Get in the room. Hello. Welcome in, you guys. I'm just going to be adding Stephanie and we're going to get started. Let's see. Send her an invite. Invite has been sent. Yes, I'm super excited. Oh, Stephanie's here already. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, hey, hey.
All right. We're going to get started. I'm super excited to have you in. Thank you so much for agreeing to jump on live with me. Anytime
Of
I see
course.
another nurse in like that's doing something outside of the bedside, I'm like, let me just try to slide into their DMs and see if we can let other nurses know of the possibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for reaching out. I love this. There's not enough of us in this space for sure.
Yes, yes. Welcome in, you guys. Welcome in. We're going to get started. Definitely, if you have any questions while we're talking, just drop it in the comment box. And we will be monitoring and answering any questions that you guys might have in relation to whatever we're talking about. So I'll just get us started off. I'll put it on our pages. So if you have to go or maybe coming in late, you will be able to rewatch it. But I, as a lot of you guys know, am Nikita, better known as the Airbnb RN. So I've been a nurse for 7 years. I'm still at the bedside as a PRN nurse, but I also on the side do real estate in the form of Airbnb arbitrage. So my journey kind of started with me knowing that I wanted to be in real estate, but not having any help or anybody that knew anything about real estate. And I was like, you know what, let me do the arbitrage way so I can get a little bit of experience. And then now, actually, I'm in the process of making a lateral move using my profit that I've made to purchase my first investment property. So, what about you, Stephanie?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing, Nikita. So for me, I'm still technically licensed, but I haven't practiced as an RN in probably about three and a half years or so.
Mm,
Um, And for me, the reason, so now I basically get to do real estate full time as an investor. So I've done a lot of all the strategies within STRs. I've arbitraged, I joint venture, I co-hosted, and now I'm an
wow.
STR realtor. So, yeah, I'm just plugged into this space. And to be honest, like you just get obsessed with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a journey for sure. But one thing I just love about nursing and healthcare and how it translates into your real estate is that like everyone's a patient. It's the funniest thing to me because I didn't realize that would be such a superpower to
Mm-hmm.
know how to deal with personalities.
That's so funny that you say that because I literally told my significant other the other day, because he helps me with my messaging. So like if I'm unable to, he'll go on there and he'll message back for me. And sometimes he can get a little frustrated, but I'm like, it's okay, just calm down. But at the same time, I had to step back and I told him, I was like, you know what? I'm already a nurse. Like we deal with so many personalities on a day-to-day basis. It kind of sort of prepped me for having to deal with guests. So it's not that like it still frustrates me from time to time, but it's like nothing that I can't handle or haven't handled already. So I definitely get his frustration, but the nursing definitely set us up for real estate, which is crazy. Like it's crazy. But so you said that you were plugged into like a lot of different aspects of real estate. What was the first area that you started?
So with the short-term rentals, my first STR was an arbitrage property. So it was a nice way to kind of get a proof of concept for myself because when I started, I didn't know anybody that was
That's
doing this.
it.
And I honestly probably taught myself like almost all of it. But then when I started meeting other people is when I started to really refine my skills it wasn't just about there's so many parts to this that people just don't realize, because getting started is one thing, but how do you maintain and not just sustain but thrive too, and that requires other people and bouncing ideas and getting to know getting good a community around yourself. So but yeah, it was pretty scary because I didn't want to tell anybody what I was doing.
100%. So I definitely try to tell others that are interested in starting, whether that be purchasing a property or arbitrage, like be prepared to continuously learn. Like a lot of people, I feel like don't want to take that next step because they feel like they don't have enough information. And really, not just with real estate, but probably a lot of things where you're going to jump into entrepreneurship, you're never going to be ready to jump because I actually thought that I knew pretty much everything. Like I was like, I had a YouTube everything. Like, yeah, I'm ready now. Like I was ready to do it. And when I got into it, I'm like, okay, what is OPM? Because I use my own money. Then I'm like, okay, what is PMS? Like the property management software and all of these different things, dynamic pricing systems. I'm like, oh my God. So definitely, I always tell people you have to be willing to, like, know when you're jumping in this, you have to continue to learn. And like, what is your long term goal as well? So, like mine, I tell people was always ownership. But this is just like my little stair step, like you said, to grasp that concept. So now I'm ready to go into doing some other things. So I'm going to take the step back for a minute and talk about nursing. So, when, first of all, how was your transition out of nursing? I see your video on your page. So, your transition out of nursing to just like full time entrepreneurship.
It was so rough. And it's funny because nobody ever talks about what that really feels like to go from complete structure uh, to pretty much figuring out how to create your own structure and be your own boss. And so I left the hospital because I was like, there's no way I can really learn this. So I did case management and utilization review in the hospital. I was a little bit different. And I did that longer than I did bedside nursing. But then I transitioned into a work from home job as a nurse. And that is what really changed the game for me. I'm really lucky because I had the skill sets of utilization review, which is like this type of like nobody knows about that in nursing, but it's like you should do it because it's no weekends, like weekends off. It was truly a 9 to 5 job, but I actually did enjoy it. It was like solving medical puzzles as an RN. Um, but what happened, I wanted to max out my W-2 income that I had as a nurse to get loans on properties. And so my biggest goal was, okay, I wanted to match my income so that I could quit and do this full time. And the way I did that was just one property at a time. But for me, what really helped was I combined all these different strategies. So I had the arbitrage property. I did have the ability to get to buy my real estate. I did tap into my 401k and took a loan against it to keep
That was
buying.
going to be my next question.
Yeah, because you start to run out of ways to get it or to get money or the capital. But then I started joint venturing and becoming the equity partner on a property, and so I literally was able to quit in 9 months and match my
Wow.
income. I know I was so obsessed. I go to bed at 11 o'clock at night, wake up at 4:30. I mean, this stuff kept me up at night. It wakes me up in the morning. It still does, quite frankly. That hasn't gone away, but um, the part that nobody ever tells you is uh, no one's going to do this for you.
No. Mm-mm.
You have to really be disciplined. Because my first year, like my key like phrase or key word, I guess you could say, theme of the year was discipline on year one. Um, and so like you don't have to know everything, just enough to get started, and then that's really all it takes. And then you'll start to refine and refine.
Definitely. Everything that you said, you hit everything. It's like I agree, I agree, I agree. But to what you said about the structure at the job, like that's something that my mentor has talked to us about, and it's like when you think about it, when you go to work, like some people get anxiety about going to work at the nursing job or whatever their regular job may be. But really, I just show up to work, and it's just like whatever happens, like we have been trained to like take care of that. We don't really have to worry about anything because everything is mapped out for us. But when you're jumping into real estate, Airbnb, entrepreneurship. It's like literally you have to figure it out. It's like nothing is figured out on you. Like even the things that behind the scenes that you don't think about as far as taxes and different finances and what do I do next or how do I market myself? It is so much. So on your journey, did you have a mentor or how did you start figuring everything out?
So I actually didn't have a mentor, though I wish I did have one. Um, I literally had YouTube University,
Me too.
podcasts, podcasts. There was no books about this stuff, and then meetups and meeting people, and honestly, trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the stuff was through trial and error, and then it's funny because the very first meetup I went to, I actually got talked out of doing STRs because nobody in that group did it, and I couldn't find the one person I found had a really bad experience, and I kind of just took their experience as if it was going to be mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a mistake because now in that same um, club that I go to, I love that club because it keeps me well-rounded, but I get to now be the STR person or the Airbnb person in the group. So, but I didn't have anybody, so lots of mistakes were made in the beginning.
That's me. That is me. Like you said, YouTube University. And when I first started at the time, I've seen people doing it, but I feel like also when you're thinking about a mentor, you have to find somebody that you relate to, like your person. And I didn't see that in any of those people. So I was just like, okay, you know what? And then also I'm like ultra independent, which can be a bad thing. Like now I'm trying like to loosen that up to like sometimes just ask for help, reach out and different things like that. And that people are willing to help you. But I was just like, you know what, I could figure it out myself, which I did. But like you said, many mistakes come with figuring it out yourself. And then it also takes a super longer time than if you would have just invested in yourself and got a mentor that could have showed you basically the roadmap to where you were trying to go. So spot on again. So, somebody transitioning out of nursing, what advice would you have for them prior to leaving the bedside? So, like you said, like that's what I'm currently doing now. Before I transition, I definitely want to match my income, but right now, I also feel like I'm also spending a lot into self development. So, it's like even if I'm matching it, I'm spending a lot because I'm still trying to develop myself more prior to leaving. So, what advice would you have for those people that are ready to step out? They're burnt out. They're like, oh, forget this.
Oh man, first off, I really love that you are as invested in self development because that is something that I personally am very passionate about myself too. Most of the books I read now have all to do with mindset. It's less technical because at the end of the day, you can have the same situation, but it really comes down to your perception and attitude that will make all the difference, whether you're successful or not. So, I would get very tactical, to be honest, because there's a lot of benefits people don't realize as much as they are ready to quit. You're very financeable, number one. So if you're looking to buy, I would max out the fact that you have that W-2 job because nowadays with banks, like I have to be way more creative when I acquire properties. But in the beginning, it was much easier because I had a track record with my work. So banks would finance me. You could do 10% second home loan, FHA loan. There's so many options. And I would really figure out what the number is and then translate that into the number of properties that you need to quit your job. And that's kind of what I did. I found out the magic number was 4 at a certain net in order to be able to quit. And then also having stuff in the pipeline. So I would really plan it because the last thing you want to do is jump ship just a little too soon and then
Trying to wing it.
Yeah,
You have to go back.
I've seen that, and I mean, you can sink or swim, but if you have the choice to really think about it and plan it out, it's one of the best things you could do. Because I planned out the steps, but what I did was I pretty much just set up my own roadmap for myself because everybody's different. And so for me, once I really mapped it out, now it's about execution. So important to plan, but the biggest thing is taking action, even if it's imperfect action, just because
100%.
you will continue to progress.
100%. So you guys definitely set your roadmap, come up with your number, And then also consider it, like if you're going into real estate, like she said, your W-2 job can help you. So it might be harder if you step out prior to that. And like you said, to execution, like that is a biggie with my mentors, is definitely executing on the information, because to be honest, you can get a lot of information from a lot of different sources, like, and not execute on it. It's like a waste of time if you just keep gathering the information up, but the execution is the part that matters the most. And then that also goes back to mindset, because a lot of people feel like it's the people around you that are that can deter you the most. Well, no, it's really yourself. You you
100%.
stop you stop you more than anybody else with your self-limiting beliefs. So I don't know if you had answered this question already, but what made you start the real estate? Like, what was your why to doing real estate versus
So
anything else?
great question, because when I first like even fathomed the idea of doing something other than nursing, it was really about getting a side income, just so that I wasn't relying on one single source. So multiple income streams was the initial thought. And I actually wanted to do e-commerce, and I still want to do it. But fortunately for me, my partner, he started like showing me all these YouTube videos on real estate. And I'm kind of the spear between the two of us. So once I thought about it, I was like, real estate makes the most sense. And there's a lot more avenues. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because during that period of time, I realized like I'll become a millionaire, and really, who are millionaires? And I started looking at the habits of those people, and everyone always goes into real estate
Oh
and
my
or
goodness.
business. So yeah, and for me it was just like a no-brainer. So it's like, all right, we're going in, and that was pretty much the decision.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. When I do webinars, sometimes it's a particular slide that I have, and it just tells people to think about, like, what are the things that the wealthy people do? And it's a couple things like that they have in the bag that they do, but real estate is one of them. So I'm like, why are we trying to recreate the wheel when we can just do what's already been done for us? Like, you hit that right on the head. You hit that right on the head. Just to double back with my why. My why is just because I feel like in my family and a lot of families that I know, like in my ethnicity, we don't have any ownership. So outside of a lot of our primary residents, no one has investment properties that they can pass down to different generations, their kids, their grandkids, or what have you, to make some sort of a passive income, whether it's passive income or whether they're using it as a place to stay themselves. Like, we don't have that. So, and then I also like to just say that my grandmother, she's been staying in her house since my mom was born, and her house is on a reverse mortgage. Well, I was young when that was placed on there. Not to say I'll say that it's bad, but I don't know all of the information on it. But maybe it was beneficial to her. So, like my mom says, that was the decision that she wanted to make, so she let her make that decision. But I felt like if I was old enough, I would have personally tried to talk her out of that decision, because it's just like that could have been like the first property of the family as far as investment, passive income, generational wealth, and then we built upon that. So now, whenever, like, ultimately everybody has to pass away, we know that as Earthers, but we know that as humans, period. But when that time comes, that'll be a property. Like, I don't know at that time, will I have my first investment property? Would I have multiple? I don't even know. Will I be over leveraged? I don't know. Will I be able myself to get that property? Because some people might not care about like their grandmother's property or properties that's in the family, but like that property is like kind of like the staple, like your grandmother would be the staple of the family. It's like, dang, I have to get that property back, but it makes me upset that it when that time comes, it won't be our property anymore. So we'll literally have to fight for it. So that was kind of like outside of it being like, okay, what can I do different in my family to create some generational wealth? But also it's like I need to be the person that shows other people in my family how to keep properties, multiply properties, and start making some more money as well. Because look, we can't even have our grandmother's house when she's gone. Like, so that's my why behind it. And I always too, just my mentor says this, and I really feel this, like when people are wanting to go into different things, like whether it be Airbnb or real estate, definitely have to know your why, because it has not been like rainbows and pots of gold. Like it's been
Oh
ups and
no.
downs, ups and downs. Like some things that I've been through, it's like if I didn't have a good why, a good rooted why, I would have just been like, you know what, this isn't for me. Like I would have stopped, because I'm still like paying for some mistakes that I made because I didn't have a mentor, because I did try to do it on my own. But when you really, really have a why, you really know why you want to do something, you'll just keep going. You'll learn from your experience, and then hopefully in the future you'll start learning from your mentors. But
I love
yeah,
that.
that is my why behind that. So the next thing I wanted to get into, because I've seen on your page, you also have a VA agency. So can you
I
tell
do.
everybody about that?
Yeah. So I've been really fortunate because so one thing that you find in real estate is that in the very beginning you're trying to learn everything, but there's going to be a point where you know you need to level up and you want to scale. And the only way you can do this is if you don't keep doing it by yourself. So the natural progression was to get virtual assistants or at least help doing the day to day, at least with the short term rentals. But what ended up happening was I ended up partnering with a VA academy in the Philippines. And so now I was able to build a VA agency where I help other real estate professionals outsource pretty much VAs. And this isn't just in short term rentals, though many of our clients are. But like this is social media, cold callers, accountants, executive assistants. It's kind of, we even have a medical scribe too, we have a physician that we also help too. So that's been great because for me, I do so many things. Like I even have a conference for short-term rentals in San Diego next month, and that wouldn't be
I think I'm
possible.
going. I think
I
I'm
hope
going.
you are.
That's
I
how
would
I
love to
found
see
you.
you.
That's how I found you.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, Nikia, you have to go. Everyone has to go because this is our last one, actually. It's our third one and our last one. But the game changes when you realize you're not by yourself. But you really, truly do in your own business have to become a leader. But that involves getting other people on your squad so that you can start focusing on, growing the business and whatever it is that you'd rather do. So
Right.
it's been really cool because I'm impacting two people. I'm impacting the person that needs the help in their business because most people need people like yesterday. And
I
also, it's
swear.
nice to be able to help fellow Filipinos. I'm Filipino, and know that I'm helping them get jobs. So you start to create the job when you start to outsource, and that is, to me, that's true
That's
impact. Like that's kind of what this is
true
about.
impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So going back to what you said, you definitely have to start taking yourself out of the business. That's another thing that I tell people that you don't know when you're stepping into entrepreneurship. Hire and fire, and like that has been a learning curve for me. Like I never had to hire anybody, so I'm like, should I do it face to face? Should I do it over the phone? What should I ask them? Like, how do I build our relationship? All of those things, and then getting yourself out of the business. Like right now, I'm actually managing it myself, other than my significant other. And I wouldn't say that it hasn't been very challenging. I feel like with the systems that you have in place, it definitely helps. But to let somebody else just take over it for you, that you train, they can be the second you basically, will allow me to be able to focus on other things completely and grow the business. So that would be the next step that I need to do. I actually was on someone live the other day, and I think he works with the VA. He doesn't have a VA agency, but that was what he was basically preaching on, is like getting somebody else to do the things. And I guess my issue with that would only be that's a lot of training. Like if somebody is not from the short term rental world, like even with my significant other, like telling him, like trying to tell him everything, it's like on the surface, it's like, okay, you can do it. Like, you can be talking about it all the time. You know all the things. But then when he started asking me questions, I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't tell you that, did I? Or,
Yes, we forget that because what's the truth is this stuff we didn't learn overnight, but because we're so into the weeds and as time goes on, we forget that other people, we don't say things out loud. And I have my significant other too, kind of a similar thing where him and I were taking turns with it for the longest time.
uh-huh.
And there's stuff where I'm like, well, if he doesn't know it, it's because I never showed it to him or it's never happened. And so
Uh-huh.
it's really no different with somebody else The nice thing I will tell you though is much easier when the person that you're hiring, they're there for a very specific reason. Uh, your significant other isn't your employee, right? They're your partner, so it's a lot harder. It's like half the time it's like pulling teeth, but at the same time I'm like, I get it, you know, because you don't want to. You start to not want to do it either at some point. So that's when you know it's time. I know another agency owner, and he was like, and he had a VA, he has also VAs, but a little bit different. And he's like, I'm in the business of keeping relationships. That's what he said. Because why not outsource something else that neither of you want to deal with? So
Yeah. So I've been trying lately to work on like a fact sheet, or I guess it would be my SOPs, really. So when I'm trying to hire somebody else on, like I have a fact sheet, but still it's like not even everything's on there. So I know there are sites that you can use to help you with that. So I feel like, I don't know, do you think that would be the first step for me to create that, or could I just get a virtual assistant that has experience in that, like connected with you and your team, that would kind of, I would be able to teach them, but they will also be able to show me at the same time.
that's a great question, and it's interesting because I always get that question. So with the SOPs, you don't have to create them yourself because at the end of the day, the SOPs are for the person that's using them. So it's actually good when your VA will help you or create it. So, and all of our VAs are trained, they're pre-trained how to create SOPs for whatever business they're plugged into. But what you would want to do though is, um, so for short-term rentals specifically, or any real estate property, having a property master list is crucial, and the only person that can fill those in is you. But that pretty much outlines, like, I have everything on there: the configuration of the beds. I have all the accounts for the internet, the water, the phone numbers, the Wi-Fi, the lock codes, even like maintenance, scheduling and stuff, so that whoever looks at it can be the one to use it. What I would probably put together though is like a training curriculum of Loom videos or Zoom videos that you record, and then kind of like an FAQ list. So, but the actual SOPs themselves, you can have your VA do that with you, but you do want to have like a curriculum. But I would actually start with a job description first and foremost. What do you actually want them to do? Because that's like, once we have clarity on that, it will be much easier to know what steps to take afterwards.
That sounds good. So essentially, too, would they like be the co-host as well, or no? Or that could be a job description that they fulfill as
Um,
well.
so you basically so like my VAs, to give an example, what do? They talk to guests, they talk to vendors, they help, they watch over my channel manager, even dynamic pricing. I've taught them basics on how to enter stuff. I still tell them what to enter because that is a little bit more advanced, and most people will hold on to that a little bit longer. I have them order resupplies for me, contractor bids. They know how to talk to contractors. That was trial and error. um, it's a funny situation because I realize at the end of the day, like, you're the one training them, and if you don't tell them how to, close the loop with communications and stuff, it's not their fault. You're the one who just didn't tell them that you do have to ask. So what's the estimate? Is there a cost to get an estimate? And does that cost go to the repairs if there is some? So it's like, these are sequential steps that you kind of have to lay out for them. It's no different when you're precepting and nursing and you're going from ICU to med surg, even though you have the foundations of being an RN. Those units are very different units.
Different.
So
Yeah.
I will train people regardless if they have experience as if they have none. And we're talking like basics on STRs, like what is a trip request? What is an inquiry? What are the KPIs on when to respond? And I do it like in a ramp style, where week one is just about tools and systems. And we use a project management software as well, which is what assigns them like their tasks for the day and their reoccurring tasks for each property. So I love systems and processes, so I can like nerd out on this all day long. But once you have that, it actually makes your personal life easier, because I also have them do personal stuff for me too. I have 3 full-time VAs that work with me. So 2 of them are 100% for the properties, and one of them's like my executive assistant that oversees them. So like, yeah, you have different ways you can structure your business however you want.
Just as somebody coming from just working and not having anybody work for you, it's even even now with me, I don't have virtual assistants, but even to think like I have cleaners that work for me, it's crazy sometimes. Like, okay, I have these people that are working for me that I'm paying, that I'm providing basically income from too, and it plays in my head like how to manage them correctly. So like sometimes I even try to like take things from my job, like, okay, what little incentives do they give us or have given us, or try to remember their birthdays or Christmas and things like that to like keep the morale up, like make them want to do a good job for the business and stay with the business and grow with the business. Because that's one thing. The cleaners, I feel like, I don't know if you can relate, but I feel like
Oh
over
yeah.
the over the span of my career in nursing, it's CNAs that sometimes can give you a problem. It's the C's. And short-term rentals, it's the cleaners. And then I feel like when I start ownership, it's going to be the contractors.
It
Like
all
just
translates
right.
100%.
So I just try to come up with things to make them like just stay and just do better. And then when I have to fire them, it's like, oh my God, here we go again. Now I have to start the process all the way over. So that's one of my issues with them. But let me see. Someone had said something, but I'm sorry, you guys, if I don't respond immediately to the chat, I lose my train of thought so easily. So I'll be trying to stay on the train.
I'm the same way. It's all good.
Would love to collaborate. So many amazing things happening with nurses and real estate. Yeah, Jonah, that sounds amazing. I would love to. I love being around like-minded people. Like I can talk all day. I
Same.
love exchanging information. Um, da, 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 da. Yes, saying the expenses to invest in self are crazy. Yes, it's definitely crazy, but it's definitely worth it. What else? So many avenues and legs to real estate you can make money from. Yeah, and I feel like that was one of my issues. Nurse Bree, she also invests in real estate. She's in a mentorship with me. She actually just closed on, I can't remember what property this was, but she just closed on a property. She said so many avenues and legs to real estate you can make money from. I feel like that's true and that's definitely great, but I feel like also it could be one of your issues. Like with me, I feel like when people have too many choices, it's hard for them to choose one. So as
I've been
far
there. I've been there.
right. So as far as investing in ownership, with me, one of my issues have been how do I want to invest? Like I can do hard money, like you said, joint ventures. Do I want to use my personal money? Do I want to do the pull out some of the equity in my house and just use that? So I'm just like, damn, which one is right for me? That probably has been one of the biggest issues with me. It's not like the fear of investing because I don't know, I'm not a big risk taker, but I feel like I'm a risk taker. I just feel like if I do something, it's gonna work. And if I have issues with it, we can get through the issues. This is the type of person that I am. But what would you say about that? Like as far as the financing part, how did you make that decision? Um, I mean, what made you make the choice that you made with your investing?
Yeah. So like to be honest, it's kind of it goes down to what the cost of borrowing is. Some sources are a lot easier, some are or a lot I shouldn't say easier, but some sources of borrowing can be very expensive. So
Hmm.
it's interesting because in today's interest rates, you know, you can still have deals can still work. I actually do have a hard money loan out right now because I'm getting them into more burrs. And basically that means like you're buying a fixer with a hard money lender, and then you're going to refinance out of it, get the money out, and then go into a long-term loan. So I'm doing a lot more of those nowadays. But you know, there's also like I've done OPM as well on a fix and flip. Um, Currently, I'm also learning more with creative financing, whether it's seller financing or taking over the
Hmm.
loans. They call that
Hmm.
sub two. There's a lot of options, but to
Right.
be honest, I mean, you'll likely, as you go like progress, you will probably hit one of these at a time. So to me, it's like, what is the easiest and least expensive that you can do right now to be able to acquire and go with that for this one property
Hmm.
and figure out the rest of it, you know, on the next property.
As I go, yeah, that makes 100% total sense. You said you just reminded me of something that you had said previously. You started to go to meetups, and I always tell people about meetups because I didn't know anything about them. I don't know what sent off the bell in my head. I can't remember the first time that I heard about meetups, but I stay in Jacksonville, Florida, and I just Googled them. And they're literally everywhere. And I tell people, if you want to get into real estate and you have no idea, like even if some things like I'm asking you questions about the finance options and what made you pick that option or whatever, you're still gonna have questions. But when I started going to these meetups that were free, the first one I did was a short-term rental one, which I loved. And then after that, I started looking into the other ones and seeing which one I liked the best. And so now I usually go to one that's the fourth Tuesday of every month. When I say it's packed out, and the best thing that I like about it, they'll do a market update and they'll have a speaker for the last time I went there it was for what was it for? It was for I can't even think of it. Um tax deeds. So they had a tax deed speaker, and then after they went over the market, their tax deed presentation, they'll go around the room and everybody will introduce themselves and say, "What is it that you do, and what is it that you're looking for?" So now everybody in the room, like they're eyeballing the people that they want to connect with when it breaks
Yeah.
up into networking. And at first, like the first time I went, first few times to be honest, because I am an introvert until like we get to talking or whatever. So I was like, okay, after we broke out a network, and I was like, okay, it's time to go. Like, I'm nervous, like, but the more I start coming around, then people will start noticing that you come around, and then they'll start conversations with you, and then you'll start continuing to advance in whatever your journey is, real estate, Airbnb, or whatnot, and you will really be meeting somebody, and then you'll hear somebody like, oh yeah, I do this, and you're like, okay, I have to go and connect with this person because I need this person, and that's like the start of building those relationships. So I'm so happy that you said that because that's a part of getting in the room, and everybody's not getting in the room.
Yes, and it's crazy too because once you become like a regular, so like just like you, like um, I when I go to meetups, it's very intentional, and to be honest, it's cool because the people that I see, they become my friends. Like they spend my birthday with me, I with them, and that's when you really start to figure out who do you want to partner with on things like that. Meetups changed everything for me. One of the projects I did, the deal came from somebody in the club or the meetup. Whoever financed came from the club. Our insurance person, everything came from this community. So if I would pick at least one, but to be honest, I like to plug myself in to many communities because it's a really small world, especially when you're a local
Hmm.
market, and it's nice because you need more allies in this space. There's good cookies and bad ones, and the people that frequent these enough, these are the people you want to be around, and they kind of elevate you too because you'll see
Hmm.
somebody doing something you want to do, and um, it's like right there, you just start to build that
Hmm.
relationship, and it just makes you go even further. So it's one thing I love about meetups.
100%. And I'm definitely gonna continue to continue to go, and maybe like you said, those relationships like yours have started, that I will start those relationships as well. One thing that you just said as well that I have noticed in the group that I go to, they do elevate together. So it's a lot of people in the group that I've known since like the first time that I've started going to it, and like their little spiel at their introduction is the same introduction, and a little like just they tweak it a little over time with whatever they're jumping into. So the latest one I went to, I don't know if you've heard about it, it's called Pad Split.
Oh yeah, okay, possible.
And I heard about it, I feel like maybe a year ago, but I mean, you hear about a lot of things. It wasn't something that was I was trying to deep dive into or whatever. But now a lot of the regulars in there, they all have pad splits. They whether they got it by themselves or got it collectively, and it's just crazy. Like this group, like they're working together, they're partnering, and they're leveling up together. So I'm so happy that you said that as well. So I need to get my stuff together and the nervousness and the shyness out and just start getting out there. I'm there. I'm just not there, if that makes sense.
Oh, I get it.
Um,
You gotta put yourself in the right mindset. But one thing somebody once told me, and I literally have this written down like on my desk, is that high tide raises all ships. So it's like, that's exactly what you do when you're with the right people.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm gonna ask one more question and then I'll ask if anybody has any questions, definitely drop it below as it relates to Airbnb, short-term rentals, arbitrage, ownership. Stephanie has done it all. I'm an Airbnb arbitrage. Any VA assistance, she has an agency. Definitely drop it below if you have any questions about that. What was like your most memorable bad experience with short-term rentals?
Oh man, I have a lot. Um, I think the biggest one for me, I had a guest one time. This isn't one of my properties, and this isn't a Florida property. I'm in SoCal, and one of the guests allegedly walked into my sliding glass door and completely shattered it.
Oh wow.
Um, and it's like, this is a double pane glass, and fortunately the person was fine, but turns out they messed up the stove, they messed up those toilet handles in the bathroom that were messed up too, and so having to remotely fix everything was an experience. And this particular property can sleep 24 people. It's
Oh
a nine
wow.
bedroom, it's a massive house. I know I could do anything now at this point, but I just won't forget that, because the next guest that checked in that day wasn't too thrilled about there being a black tarp as the back door. And it's gray as
Yeah.
you enter. It's the first thing you see from a distance. So
Oh,
um,
oh yeah.
that wasn't fun to deal with, but we got through it. And I thank my cleaners, because they were the real MVPs. That
I
helped
always
me figure that out.
right. I always tell my cleaners now when I'm hiring them, like, hey, you are the heart of the business. You're gonna end up knowing my property better than I know my property. You're gonna know when something's stolen, when something's broken, anything. So like I appreciate you. I depend on you. So and then now I've started to incorporate too, like, are you willing to run errands for me? Or like I need you to do everything. But these, like I said, I didn't know how to hire or fire. So these are things that I started to learn along the way. So, Nurse Bree has a question. Does your VA agency do cold calling for wholesale as well, and pay range?
Yeah, so they do cold calls, or we have cold callers rather that are trained. Pay range depends if this is like a full time versus part time role, and years of experience. So to kind of give you some examples, like if this was a part time position, it could range from, I'd say, um, between 400 to, I'd say, up to 700, depending on the years of experience. And then full time can go from 700 to about 900 for full time. But it really does depend on the years of experience. The more they have, the more that they'll request as far as payment and stuff. So yeah.
And to piggyback off of Bree's question, as far as cold calling goes, because I was literally just talking about this. I was on Fiverr actually, and speaking with, I had paid for a service for someone to basically cold call around to different apartment communities because that's where I do my Airbnb arbitrage at now, and I feel like that's one of the number one things that people don't want to do. They don't want to, it's either I tell them you're going to do the work on the front end or you're going to do the work on the back end. So the front end being you're going to have to do the work. So when I first started, I was going there like I was an actual tenant and just telling them, hey, I'm not a tenant. I'm actually coming as a business owner. Do you guys accept this model? Allow short-term rentals to do business here. I was doing that, getting those. I felt like I wanted to say getting doors slammed in my face, but it wasn't that literally, but it just came in my head. But I was doing those things, and I feel like people don't want to do those things. They want the easy way out. So I was looking for a cold caller who could possibly do that for me. Is that something that those VAs will be able to do?
Yeah. I mean, that's for, like, we have somebody that's all they do is cold call, so they know what they're signing up for, and that's big and that's important in the very beginning. The one thing that you do want to provide though, because everybody's different, is like the lead sourcing. Because some people will do this for pre-foreclosures. You're doing this for apartments. If you have a script that has worked,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that would be helpful for them. If you have a dialer, because the tools should be sourced by the owner, because you want to own that tool at the end of the day if anything happens. So like the dialer is yours, the CRM is yours. But yeah, it's that can be done. We have people that literally, that's just all they do is call.
Calling. What is this? What advice would you give to nurses who are newly looking into hosting Airbnbs? What would be your recommended first steps without putting the carriage before the horse? Now that I know, first of all, hey, Charmaine. Um, and we can both answer this question. Now that I've started and I did everything on my own, I would definitely say a mentor, because you that would definitely fast track your process. When I first started, I went in with my own personal money. I didn't know about the systems or anything. I was just doing everything by myself and I made mistakes. So now I know to scale or to do it without my money to utilize OPM, which is other people's money or business credit, and to make a plan to pay that back with my profit, which I didn't in the beginning. And then create those systems that I know now that I did not know in the past. What would you say, Stephanie?
Um, I would honestly first identify like why are you doing this
Well,
because
we
it's
talked
very
about that.
front low. Yeah. So first, for sure, get some clarity on what the purpose is in the first place. The next thing really comes down to the strategy that you want to do. If you're going to focus just on arbitraging, don't worry about every other strategy because there's co-hosting, there's partnering, there's just owning it. Pick one of
Mm-hmm.
those strategies and then 100% finding a mentor. I wish I had some. Now I pay for mentorships all the time because I want to shortcut and not make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the clarity questions, nobody can answer those for you
Mm-hmm.
because once you've decided and truly decided, that really is what that if the deal's done. Now you can start making it the roadmap for it versus thinking, oh, am I sure? Am I sure? Because the more you get stuck in the I'm not sure phase, nothing will happen. So
Nothing's
that's
gonna
what
get
I,
done.
yeah, that's what
Mhm.
I would say.
I definitely agree with that, because there's so many outlets to go to start off, whether you want to do midterms, arbitrage, long-term rentals, you want to do the path, like I said, that came up in that REI meeting that I was in, where you have a single family home and then it's different people in every room and you're trying to make more rooms than the normal rooms that's in there. Everything is going to have a little bit different of a pathway. So, and then also a different profit level as well. So you definitely have to figure that out. I will tell you that my reasoning for going into, which I said at the beginning, but I'll repeat it. My reasoning for going into the arbitrage method was because I didn't know anything, and that was the easiest way for me to get in the business because I wanted to start and then get hands-on training at the same time without that big of a risk. So if I didn't like it, I was in a 1 year lease. After that 1 year, I could have just been like, okay, bump this. I don't want to do it anymore. Oh, Stephanie fell off. I could have just said I don't want to do this anymore, and then that would have been that. Um, Also, it was less money up front for me, so I didn't have to think about where I was going to get the money from. I was already a travel nurse, and I had money saved up that I could just readily invest, which I only did $5,000 versus me jumping into a property, and I didn't know anything about market research. I didn't know if they like anything in relation to if this was going to guarantee me profit and I'm purchasing a property, getting a 30-year or 15-year mortgage on it, would that work? So that was why I did the arbitrage way. And then I learned, and then I've been through growing pains, and then now my ultimate goal was ownership. So now I feel like I'm ready to make that next pivot into that.
That's usually the natural progression, but that's really good because you're gonna transition to this much better than a lot of people who just go, straight to the ownership side of things, and then
Mhm.
because like I'm glad I started with arbitrage first too. It really it gave me more confidence, and so it was much
Mhm.
easier when it came to actually buying it versus if I just went straight to buying. So everyone's different, but I like it that it was a stepping stone, and you see it that way.
Me too, yeah. So I feel like I said, everything in my life has been a stepping stone. I was a CNA. No, even before a CNA, I was a financial rep. So I was always in the environment of the hospital. I was in the ED, just checking patients in, getting their insurance. But I was seeing everything that was going on. And like when you see, you get in an environment, you're learning still. And then I did the CNA work. Now I'm just doing some light duties, if you will call it that. And then nursing, jumped into that, and it was like I was just picking up a little bit more responsibilities along the way, but never nothing that was like so major, like it stressed me out. So I'm just doing the same thing with real estate. Are you doing arbitrage for midterm rentals or short-term rentals? Actually both. So, I I would say it's almost about half and half. Some of my guests they try to they book for short-term rentals, and then some of my guests they book for the midterm rentals. It depends on what they're coming in town for. I've had construction workers that are coming in the area to work and they stay for a couple months. I have people like just like what you call it, snowbirds that come down. Right now, I have a husband and wife that's just here to see their new grandbaby. And she's a retired nurse as well. We had a whole conversation. Her and her husband are here just to visit, and they're staying for a month. So it's a mixture of both. I will say that I prefer the midterm rentals a little bit better now because it's a little bit more smooth sailing. It's not so many check-ins, checks out, making sure the cleaner is doing what they're supposed to do and everything is that they're just in there. Once you give them all the information, they for the most part are good. But on the short-term rental side, you can make a little bit more money than the mid-term rentals because I offer a discount for longer stays. How do you contact construction companies? I don't. They reach out to me. They reach out to me. So whether that be right now, I'm just on the platform. So Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. But once you start getting the property software systems, you can also have your what you call that direct booking sites. You can have a website that people can reach out to you about. People Google everything, you know that, and furnish finders as well. So I've also had some displaced families that insurance companies have reached out to me about housing these individuals, and those were month stays as well, so midterm stays. Any more questions? So while we wait to just see if anybody has any more questions, Stephanie, tell us about what you have going on. So how can people find you? What do you provide? Your services? I see you. I looked over your LinkedIn linked tree, so you have a lot of things that you offer. And then also about next month, what's going on there?
Yeah. So you guys can find me. We're on IG right now, but Instagram, Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel, which I haven't focused as much on, so I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. If you're looking to buy an STR, whether it's in Southern California, if it's in Southern California, I'm your person. But I'm in a short-term rental brokerage, so we have agents all over the country that all they exclusively do is work with buyers and sellers with STRs. So I've got a lot of connections all over the place. I have Bravo Virtual Assistants. This is the agency side if you're needing somebody to help you scale your business. I do coaching and consulting as well. My biggest focus is actually on remote management because I have properties in California, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. So that's kind of where I got most of my roots, is just how do you do this from anywhere? So that's kind of what I help folks with on that piece. But the big thing that right now that we have next month is STR Nation. So this is a community that I've built over the past 3 years. We have our own Facebook group with over 4,000 members. And we have our 2-day conference on all things, and it's not just STRs, because we have people like, I don't know if you know who Amy Majuri is, but she does Raising Private Money. We have Jesse Vasquez with Midterm Rentals. Yeah, Sean Rockadee with Airbnb Automated. Yeah. So we have some really, really solid folks. We have somebody that's, we have a boutique hotel panel, insurance for risk management. I'll be talking about VAs. One of my co-founder, Patrick, actually buys STR property management companies. So if you're a co-host person, an easy way to do this at scale is to just buy an existing business. And he's bought, I think, 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, wow.
In a very short period of time. And he does it using OPM. So, and then the networking aspect of it is super vital. I've seen partnerships happen because of past conferences. But this one we're hosting in San Diego, California, and it's actually going to be our last one. We just decided, nothing bad, we're booking super busy with our own ventures. Like I have my own fixer that I'm going to be building and fixing up and getting that going. So yeah, just lots of fun stuff in the works, but I'm really excited because STR Nation is something that I've just Oh, it makes me sad. And we have our last monthly meetup in downtown LA in 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Y'all need to go to STR Nation. I went last year and it was the best. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Two questions before I forget. One, your property management software, what is that? And then two, did you start off, was your first property, SCR, was it local or remote?
So I use Hostaway. I have used Hospitable, OwnerRez, and Guesty for hosts. So
Oh
Hostaway is
Lordy. I'm trying to figure out which one to use and I'm just nervous about everybody says a different one.
oh, I can tell you my opinions on it, but I mean, OwnerRez, people either love it or hate it. It's like Windows 95. I hated it. I wanted to love it so much, but I just couldn't. There's a lot of pros and cons, but yeah, not for me. So I'm on Hostaway now, but Hospitable is probably one of the easiest plug and plays with a lot
Hmm.
of functionality, and Guesty for hosts is honestly actually meant for people with four or less properties. Even Guesty themselves says that because they have a higher tier product that's meant for more than four properties.
Guessing for pros, right?
Yeah,
Guessing
Guesty
for
for
pros.
pros, or they go by Guesty. But so that was that question. I use Hostaway now, which I like them. I'm cool. I've been with them for like almost 2 years now.
Okay.
Um, Remind me on your second question.
Did you start locally or remotely with your first property?
So it was actually local. It was about 30 minutes from me, and then I went out of state to a different area. And I actually find that being further away from the property is much easier because
Mm,
you can't sweat the small stuff. I was
somebody
at my
told me that.
property. Yeah, I was at my local property way too much.
Mhm.
Also, it was my first one, so I didn't know any better. But I'm starting to get more local things nowadays and repositioning myself. But yeah, my first one was only 30 minutes away from me, and it was one of my most stable properties because it was in California in a less seasonal area.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally how I feel. All of mine are within drivable distance to me, and I just felt like since I didn't have a mentor, didn't have anybody to tell me like if something was to happen, I needed to be able to get there. But just like you said, when you have something that's so close to you, you will hop up and you will go to that thing. If something's going on, you will be there instead of trying to think outside of the box, like what else or who else can do this thing for me. So I had a while ago, I was in this other short-term rental challenge, and she said something, and it was just so simple. But I was like, that is so. Why don't I think of that instead of just hopping up? Like if a guest needed something that I felt might have been vital for them that I didn't. Oh, let me add her back. If a guest needed something that I felt might have been vital, but vital to the stay or vital to like my reviews or something, I'm like, okay, let me just go and get it. And she was like, I mean, why don't you just like postmate it or have it delivered there? Well, you don't have to go there. And I was like, you're so right. Like, and then I started doing it, but it's just like if you when you don't know, you don't know, and just talking to somebody that's in the same business or maybe even but beyond doing the things that you're doing, it's just so easy little tips like that make a world of difference. So this first investment property of mine, so we might have to talk more since I got that information out of you. This first investment property of mine, I just feel like you said you have some in Florida. I'm in Jacksonville, but I feel like it's pretty high here, like for
We're,
every little thing.
yeah,
Um,
we're actually
but
going to sell the Florida property.
okay,
But
so
for different reasons, yeah.
so I was looking into the Midwest area, but I just didn't know exactly where yet. I don't like really cold places, so I've never wanted to really visit up there. So I don't have a preference of whether it be here or here or here. I just need to pick a place, pick a market, and then find a team to help me like get things rolling or whatever. So we can definitely talk about that later.
Yeah, for sure.
I own a home in Central Cali. How do I find someone who may want to arbitrage my home? That's a good question. You can. The first thing that comes to the top of my head is um, Facebook, Facebook groups. Like they have a ton of short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO type Facebook groups that you can go into and possibly advertise your home. I would definitely. I'm not familiar with the central Cali area. I think maybe Stephanie might be, but see what type of market that is that your home is in. Like, is it in a good short term rental market or whatnot? But people are definitely looking for property owners that will be willing to allow them to use their homes.
Oh yeah. I know some people who do have properties in Central California and they do midterm rentals. But I'll be honest, to find somebody that wants to be an arbitrager will actually be pretty easy. There's a lot of people looking, so I can always give you ideas too if you want to DM me separately on like referrals and whatnot. I do know quite a few folks all over California, but yeah, it depends on kind of what your goals are too,
Hmm.
and pretty much just finding somebody that aligns with you since you are the landlord of the property.
100%. I hope that helped. Any more questions, you guys, before we wrap this up? We've been on for an hour. Uh, any more questions? If you have any more questions, definitely drop it below and we will answer it really quickly. In the meantime, if anybody is interested in arbitrage, like I said, I do arbitrage, but with apartment communities, just to get your feet wet. I do have a course and I do offer mentorship if you feel like you need that hand holding. I'll be starting that mentorship up next month again. You can definitely hit me up in the DMs. I'll respond back to you or comment under any one of my posts and I'll respond back to you with more information about that. Make sure we didn't miss anything. And if nobody have any questions, we are going to be out of here. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me on this live. It was amazing. Like everything that you were saying, I could 100% connect with. I feel like you're definitely on another level than me, but I feel like your
Oh,
path is I'm behind you.
oh,
Like they say, like when I first started, there are people that are me 3 years ago trying to figure what I'm doing out that need the information. Same thing with like you started with the arbitrage, that's where I'm at, and now I'm looking to invest in more. Same path that you were on, but you're just further ahead of me, so I appreciate all of the knowledge that you just dropped on here for us. If anybody wants to connect with Stephanie, it is Stephanie, what's your last name? Stephanie Figueroa.
Figueros.
Yep, and
Mm-hmm.
her LinkedIn information is there. Drop her a DM. She responded back to me super duper quick. Same with me and Slaying Nurse Balls. Yes,
Yeah.
girl
Thank you so
boss.
much
I
for
forgot to
having
put that nurse
me.
boss. You're welcome. It was amazing, and I did see your YouTube. I'm going to subscribe to your YouTube, so hopefully you get back on there, and
I
I'll be
know.
posting this on YouTube.
Very cool. I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye, you guys.